What was your life like in the 60s?
It was hell. It was fine.
Talk
Huh?
the whole farming. How was
I grew up on a farm. You know, we had 5 farms, and we did a lot of custom farming where we took our machinery, because we had all the biggest and the best, and went out 5 or 6 different counties and worked for other people too, for so much an acre. We raised a lot of cattle, but fed 1,600 head a year, and raised a lot of purebred Duroc hogs. They're the red hogs. And we showed them at the county fairs, state fairs, national congresses. And we had a national champion once and set a record for most money for open gilt, which is a gilt that's never had any pigs yet. It sold for $5,500 for one pig. Yeah. And then we were the first people in the county to get 8 bottom tractors, and 2 years later we got a second one. We had the biggest combines they make. We had one that was at Oliver, and one was at Alice Chalmers, which is at Leonard Baldwin. And I guess that's about it on the farming, really. We did custom saddle filling, hay baling. We did hay baling. We did plowing and combining, and we would even do disking and dragging for some guys that didn't have any equipment. Now, unless you're a farmer, you don't know what all that is anyway.
No, not really.
And then in '67, I got married and I left the farm. And then I moved into DeKalb.
What was going on at DeKalb in the 60s?
Not really much anything, but when I was growing up, younger, before, in grade school, Northern Illinois University wasn't even there. It was a DeKalb College. It was a teacher's college. And then it became a university, and then it really grew. They were in the top 20 in the nation in enrollment, as a matter of fact. They had over 20,000 freshmen alone. The city of DeKalb itself is about 32,000, and then probably another 40 or 50,000 in the university. And I married my wife, and her dad owned a restaurant, and so then I got into the restaurant business. And it was called the Barber City Restaurant. They had a lot of good homemade food, and it was really good. That can't still be rolling, is it?
Yeah.
I thought they would run for like 30 seconds or something.
No. 30 minutes.
You're kidding. Oh my God. Next question.
How many people were in your family?
How many children?
Yeah.
Like working on the farm.
3 boys, 2 girls. But the girls didn't work on the farm very much. My mother would go out and help once in a while, though. My dad, he had bad heart, so he didn't get to do hardly any farm work at all. He'd go around and get us the jobs to do the custom work with, though.
Was there still...
Pardon?
Was there still... I don't know how to phrase it.
What?
Segregation?
No. The civil rights movement, did that affect your city at all?
The civil rights?
Like, giving African Americans the vote, or the right to vote?
It didn't affect us. I mean, we didn't have hardly any in our town. DeKalb didn't have hardly any blacks, only at the university. Now, our neighboring town, which is also the county seat of Sycamore, that's where all the blacks lived. They did not live in DeKalb. And I'm sure now they do, but they didn't back then.
How many people were in your school?
You know, I'm not sure. There's either 170 or 109. There was 39 in my senior class. I was 14th, but we had some real brainchilds in my class too. Patty Watts, one of them. She was number one, smartest in the class. And I graduated in 1960. So that was, we wasn't really in the 60s yet, then we just got there. And we had one black student when I was in there as a freshman, and then we didn't have one until I was a senior. And he was younger one, wasn't the same family. So civil rights really didn't have anything to do with us. Next question.
Besides farming, what other activities did you do?
Drank beer. And lots of it. You think I'm kidding? I'm not.
No.
Were you allowed to buy your own beer?
What was the drinking
Well, no.
age?
21. I
21.
wasn't allowed to, but yes, I did. Because the first time I went to the bar, I had my brother's ID. He just turned 21. And I never used it again. In fact, they just let me go in and buy it anyway, in my own little hometown.
When did you enter, or when did you become a military policeman?
You know, I'm thinking 62.
62? What was your life like when you were doing that? Or
It was good.
what did you do?
I was stationed. I went into the Army. I was drafted. And I went into the Army and I went to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And when I got out of basic training, I went right to on-the-job training as an MP out in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland. And Aberdeen Proving Grounds is probably the world's largest proving grounds. It's got 75 square miles of all proving ground area. And most of the stuff they do there is they make ammunition for the military. And it's civilian employees work in these ammunition plants. And they had all these guard stop areas where you had to stop, and that's where we would be as an MP checking their security clearances, because you had to have a security clearance to come on the base. You stopped every car unless the car had stars on the license plates, and then you let them go. You just, that's a general. You don't stop that car at all. And then we also, we rotated shifts. We was on 8 and off 16, on 8 off 16, and then we was on 8 and off 24. That would put us to the next shift. So we worked day shift, second shift, and third shift, all just kept rotating. And then for a while I was in the Marine Security Branch, that still an MP, where we went out and patrolled the waters in Chesapeake Bay to keep the poachers out, because we had a lot of deer on the base. And people come in and want to shoot the deer, so we had to watch. We patrolled that area too, and we had a game warden branch that go out, and then we had to, if you was in the game warden branch, you had to go out and shoot 7 deer a month, because the population gets so great that's causing too many accidents. And then we also, a lot of times you was on a day shift, you could go to downtown, patrol Aberdeen and Havre de Grace. And Havre de Grace is where they had a Coast Guard. We're at Havre de Grace, that's in Maryland, which is only 28 miles out of Baltimore, and it's 32 miles from Washington, D.C., 50 miles from Philadelphia, and about 150 miles from New York City. So I got to go to all those places. That was in the military. Then I had to go through 88 hours of hand-to-hand combat, too, for the MPs. We carried loaded .45 caliber pistols, too. And the one time they had 2 or 3 escaped convicts from Pennsylvania State Pen, and we had to go around and check all the empty barracks, and we had to go in pairs, and we got to carry carbines, loaded carbines, in case we found somebody. That was a little bit scary, but all right. And that's about it for the military.
When did you exit the military, or like?
Well, I got out early for helping on the farm. So it was around Christmas time of '93.
In the
Not '93, '63. I'm sorry, '93. Get real. Come on.
in the army, what was one of the most moments that like stuck out to you the most?
Not really anything. It was just another day every day. That's all. It was okay. It was fun. The only hard part about it is going through basic training, because boy, they put you through some rigorous training. Not as bad as like Navy SEALs or something. No, that's ridiculous. My buddy was a Navy SEAL. That's the one I was talking about. It was the policeman, and his son is now, because he's 91 years old. He was the elite group of the Navy SEALs in World War II. You got to be able to breathe under, hold her breath for 3 minutes, I think it is. I don't know how anybody can hold her breath for 3 minutes.
What?
That's ridiculous.
So during the 60s, the Cold War was still going on?
The what?
The Cold War was still going on?
What's the Cold War?
Like the
Vietnam was
Yeah.
going on in the 60s.
how did that affect you at all?
No, because it hadn't really even got started up when I got out. It was right after that.
Did it did it